Good afternoon, everybody. Fergus Dolan here from NADA, the National Adult Literacy Agency. You're very welcome to our webinar this afternoon on helping ESOL students with low literacy levels and progress towards accredited programs. And we're delighted to welcome two facilitators from Balbriggan, from this Dublin and Dundee ETB, Hanna McManus and Jolanta Marondel-Crampton. So, hi Hanna, hi Jolanta.
How are you? Hi.
I'm going to hand over to Hanna, who's going to start. So all the best, Hanna.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on helping ESOL literacy students progress towards accreditation. The reason why we chose this topic and why we're working on it is very simple. It's because we have been flooded with applications for ESOL. And as you can see from the graph here, our numbers in ESOL provision are growing and growing. And out of those numbers in Balbriggan, we have quite a considerable number of people who do not have good education, who in fact have quite low levels of education. Balbriggan generally, in comparison to the rest of the country, has higher unemployment, more lone parents, quite much younger population. And just to give you a figure, in 2020, so 3 years ago, 197 nationalities enrolled in further education programs. Of those, 77.8% were Irish and 22.2% were non-Irish. And among this group, almost 65% were female and 35.5% were male. The composition of population in Balbriggan, as you can see over here from the last census in 2022, 1/3 of our population was born in another country. Now, looking at that figure over here, the fact that so many applicants in further education are female is actually the reason why our groups, our literacy, ESOL literacy groups, are mainly composed of women. Now, over here, you can see the level of education and economic status of our female cohort. As you can see, almost half of them don't have formal training or any education at all. And almost half of them are also unemployed. Now, they could be classified as ESOL literacy students, but that classification, that name, ESOL literacy, is very, very general. And as you can see here, we can actually break ESOL literacy into 4 different categories. Learners who are pre-literate, and these come from oral cultures where the spoken languages do not have current written forms or where print is not regularly used. These are learners who often come from China, India, Algeria, Morocco. Non-literate learners who do not read or write in any language, but they live in literate societies. And this group includes members of Roma communities from Romania and Moldova. Semi-literate, these are learners who have some basic reading and writing skills, but are not yet functionally literate. And these learners often come from European countries and represent a low rate of educational attainment. And then we have non-Roman alphabet literate. Now, these are students who may be very much literate in their language, but their language uses a different form of alphabet, such as Arabic, Thai, or other pictographic languages. So these groups can be actually quite different. Not only can't we put ESOL literacy students into a basic ESOL class with literate students, but even if we put these students together, they will find it very difficult to follow the same syllabus and to make the same progression. Now, what do we offer students in our service? Well, first of all, at the point of entry, we offer them ESOL literacy classes, and we try to separate them. We try to make them work in groups that could move together, that could move forward. This means quite small numbers in a group. Usually they have 2 lessons twice a week. Additionally, we can offer them one-to-one support if they're struggling. And then what Jolanta and myself developed over the past few years is an ESOL General Learning QQI Level 2 program. Now, mind you, not every student is ready after a year or 2 years of ESOL literacy classes to progress, but those who can and are willing to spare 4 days a week to attend the class, they're offered that chance. And then after that, we offer them ESOL Employability Skills QQI Level 3. Again, 4 times a week, 2-hour classes. This is run with the hope that after 2 years of this Level 3 program, the students will be able to engage in the labor market and find a job that prepares them for employment. And Jolanta will actually tell you more in detail how this program works. So over to you, Jolanta.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'll show my screen. So I hope you can see the first slide. So I was the lucky teacher that got to develop the program. We started the program in 2020, so yesterday we actually have started our 4th year of running this program. And our first group of students in September 2020, they were just 7 women, so I was really lucky. I had a very small group in the classroom. They were all females. They're all immigrants from Africa and Asia, but sometimes we do get Eastern European women as well in our program. All of the students had very little or no previous education. They're all based in Balbriggan and they're of mixed cultural background. So that bit of information sort of defines the profile of our student. And we keep it in mind. It's important for us who our students are and who we teach. So as Hanna said, our general learning program is at QQI level 2 and it's 30 credits, and we have picked 5 modules: listening and speaking, reading, writing, computer skills, and quantity and numbers. So obviously at that stage, we try to give our students basic literacy skills. And we have decided to pick those 5 modules to give those skills to them. And we've started with only 30 weeks program, 3 days a week, 2 hours each day. But we have noticed that actually our students could benefit with more hours. And this year, actually, that the same program is running for 33 weeks, and we have 4 days a week, 2 hours a day. So after the full award at level 2, we have the employability skills program that's 60 credits. And we run that program over 2 or 3 years. So we have 6 modules. There's ESOL, communications, career preparations, mathematics, computer literacy, and internet skills. And our students can do those 6 modules within 2 or 3 years. It's brilliant. It's a long-term commitment, but it gives our students time to develop their skills. So obviously our goal is to get them ready to do accredited courses that will give them qualifications for work. And they cannot achieve it within 1 year. That's why we have decided to give them the time, and it's 2 to 3 years for level 3. You can see on the screen now the program objectives. They are in program descriptors. So the 4 most important objectives are to develop new skills to areas that may interest the learner in future programs, enhance the learner's confidence, develop interpersonal communication, teamwork, and team management skills, and progress to the next level, or may informed choices in relation to employment opportunities. So that level 3 is really a bridge, a course, a program that gets them to either a work market or to the further education. And just to show you how busy that program is, I put LOs from module descriptors for QQI level 2 into this little table. So as you can see, we have the 5 modules at level 2 here, and all of them together have 80 LOs altogether. It's a huge number for a person, ESOL student, with very basic literacy skills. And the program I've developed has 23 different assessments throughout the whole program. And within them, we have 72 exercises. So it's a huge task to deliver that program and for students to go through that program. And obviously, module descriptors will encourage every student, every teacher to merge LOs. But I have actually chosen to take an opposite approach and actually use the fact that we have overlapping LOs to actually revise the language and the skills because the repetition is what our ESOL students need. They need to have the chance to repeat again and again and again what they have learned before they can move on. I'm sure we are all familiar with spiral learning. That's exactly what we do in our classroom. So we start with giving our students the basic language. Once I can see that it's solid, then I can build on the basis they already have. And then, as I said, repeat, revise, and build more and more. That's what this course is about. We have to remember that the same course can be run for literacy students, but our ESOL students need to develop the language skills first before they can achieve the other goals. So how do we do it? I don't want to bore you, so I really I'm going to try to make it as practical as possible and give you ideas that you could actually use in your own centers. So first of all, what I want to put emphasis on is please use practical language. For purpose of this webinar, I have picked the subject of public transport. Before our students can run with LOs, they have to learn how to walk with the language skills first. And that language must be practical first. So talking about public transport, something that's very practical for our students, I start the course with reading and writing. So there are 2 separate modules. And as you listen to me on the slides, you can always see the name of the module and the LOs I used. So that's very practical thing, information for you, and how to link what we do in the classroom with actually the module descriptors. So I started with reading and writing. I introduced my students to the language related to public transport. And of course, I can use for that purpose any reading material. And I just open one of the books and you can see an exercise related to public transport. But I would like you to make sure that, of course, you are using an exercise on the language level that your students have. And also, I As you can see on the screen, this was a British book, and we have words, names like Edinburgh here. So it is actually very important for our ESOL students to expose them to the local names. So before I actually, I wouldn't copy that exercise. I would change the name Edinburgh for Balbriggan, pounds into euros, just to expose my students to their local names, the names they are using on daily basis. It's not unusual that our students are in Balbriggan for 10, 15 years and they still cannot spell the word Balbriggan. So we are trying to expose them to the local names. And of course, if we take a look at the picture, I would change that picture for, there's no need to have a white male on the picture. I want it to be representative of my students. So I'll use my students' profile and I would use a picture with a woman representing my students. And so reading and writing give my students very basic vocabulary related to public transport. And then when they're reasonably comfortable with it, I use the same vocabulary during my listening and speaking module. And you can see the LO I'm using for that purpose. So in here, you can actually see part of an exercise I do in the classroom. Those are actually very practical exercises. I use the announcements used on Connolly station, the train station. I try to actually record the announcements, but it was just too loud. So I just noted them down and I read them out for my teachers word by word to expose them to the practical language they will hear when they travel. So this exercise then revise the vocabulary on public transport they already had. And then I use it again in our speaking module, and again you can see the LO there. So we have to record as part of speaking module a conversation between two people. And I have chosen to make that recording for the students' portfolio about public transport. So once again, they can practice their language on the topic. And then again, we revise the same language on our computer skills under completely different LO. So students actually learn how to use a practical public transport website, irishrail.ie. And believe me, most of them don't know it and never heard of it. So we go to that website, we revise the language as we are looking for our next train from Balbriggan to Connolly, again, local names. And again, once this language is really embedded in the long-term memory of our students, I can use it for quantity and numbers, which basically is maths. So I have another LO here, and I ask my students to actually go to another level of thinking about practical maths, but they can only do it when they don't have to focus on language anymore. That's why I use that quantity and numbers exercise when they are already comfortable with their public transport language. So that was about practical language. That language we teach our students also has to be very relevant to them. They will not be interested to come into our classroom if it's not relevant to them. So because of our students' profile, we have mostly mothers in our groups. For example, for this webinar, I have picked parent-school relationship language. And again, like previously, I started with reading and writing. I give my students a lot of opportunities to learn the pronunciation, to gain the language skills related to parents' school relationships. And then we practice during listening and speaking, and as you can see, completely different LOs. But we use the same language, we revise it. And then again, in listening and speaking, we have another set of exercises Now, I do believe you are going to get that presentation, so we will be able to take a closer look at what was on the previous slides. But I would like to focus on this exercise, which is part of a speaking module. So we have two allows there, and we have to record a skills demonstration. And I've decided that my students will come to school, to the teacher of their child, for a teacher-parents meeting. I am the teacher, they are the parent, and every student gets an adopted child. So they get a description and a photograph of a child, and based on that description, we practice a conversation that could happen in their everyday life when they actually go to meet the teacher of their child. We have lots of fun with that exercise. It's very stressful for students at first, but they gain fantastic literacy skills there. And also, we learn not only about verbal language, but also about non-verbal language. Lots of our students are from very mixed, they are from very mixed cultural backgrounds. So the same behavior, the same body language can be read in a completely different way by every single person in our classroom. So here, just to wake you up a little bit, I would like to present a couple of my students. That's actually level 3, because we speak about non-verbal language also, not only at level 2, but also level 3. So to make them aware about their body language, about their facial expressions, about the way they dress, we do this exercise at level 3 when every student gets a description of a scenario, and they have time to get ready at home, prepare their clothing, prepare makeup and other preps. And then when they come back to the classroom, they have to, in one screenshot, in one photograph, present the scenario. So on the left side here, we have one of my students. She was getting ready to go out to a wedding party, and she is after realizing that she has lost her keys. And as you can see, she has done quite a good job expressing the "I can't believe I lost my key" kind of situation. And she has beautiful evening makeup, lovely dress. And on your right side, you can see another student who was to present a mother of four small children. And she is very busy, she's very tired. So she actually came in to school in her working tracksuit, got rid of all the makeup, has changed her hairdo, and we can see her, she looks down, her shoulders are down as well. So we spent quite a lot of time in our classrooms to actually make them aware of the nonverbal language as well. But coming back to parent-school relationship, once the students are comfortable with the language, we use the same vocabulary in computer skills class, where the students are asked to go to the browser and find information, contact information for their school. And then we use that language during our quantity and numbers module. So at that stage, the students have the language skills to be able to actually go to that other level of thinking. So we were talking about practical language and relevant language, but I would like to also encourage you to pay attention to students' interests. So just in case if you are bored, falling asleep, getting tired, I would like to ask you a question. One of the students came into my classroom last year, and she said she didn't understand the obsession with bees. So she said the child goes to school and it seems that all they do is learn about the bees. I have used that piece of conversation between my students. How would you use it? What kind of exercises or lesson would you create in this scenario? I would really appreciate if somebody unmuted themselves, show the face, and maybe come up with a few ideas. Anybody?
Well, maybe ask them to explain what do they mean by obsessed with bees? What vocabulary are they going to use to explain that then?
Well, so
For a start.
yes, basically, so what they were saying was every day they go to school, they learn about bees, 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 nothing but bees. Yes? Why? Why? So thank you, Laura. Lovely to see you. And what I did last year was I actually used it for reading and writing. So I found a text about bees that was appropriate to their level, to the level of language they were able to understand. And we were talking about different elements of environment and how they're all connected, and the part that the bees actually take in our environment. And we also used it in writing. And you can see on the screen the LOs I used for those exercises. And it was quite, I absolutely love it when you see that the students actually start thinking about the world around them and make the connection. They have never thought about a simple bee having an impact on our everyday life. So it's lovely to see them making that connection. Another question for everyone. Also last year, one of the students came in and said she got a stupid fine for not paying TV license. Now, I would probably just completely ignore that conversation this year after the summer. But last year, I thought, well, there's an interesting one. So any ideas, anybody? Would you have an idea how to use that situation in your classroom? How could you incorporate it into your teaching? Okay, I'll tell you what I did. So I used it for our communication class. So because the student came in all upset, stupid fine, we were talking about the language use, about the hands that she was throwing into the air, about the tone of her voice. So we used it again for the nonverbal language, but we also used it in our listening and speaking class as part of discussion about breaking the law and what is the license for, all of it. And then we actually used it in our computer skills class. We actually went to the website and they were quite surprised how easy it is to pay the TV license online. Now, whether they did it this year or not, I don't know, but I do know they know how to do it. And the last question for you about the relevant following students' interest is this one. So they were talking about the weather, how it is changeable and how it is unpredictable. You know, they came in, they left home and the sun was shining, and by the time they got to school, it was raining. And actually, I was quite surprised how busy the chat was. So I didn't ignore it. I actually used it in my classroom as well. Any ideas how it could be used?
Well, you could talk about climate change and maybe weather changes where their native countries are, and
Exactly.
how to deal with it or
Exactly.
adapt
So,
or anything.
yeah, it's when I ask the students, so what do you do to help your planet? there was no answer. I asked, why do you recycle your rubbish? And the answer was, well, it's cheaper than the black bin. So that was completely new topic for them. They don't listen to Irish television, they do not listen to radio, and they don't read news. So it's quite surprising sometimes how new the topic of climate change is for them. I can see one of the students here, sorry, one of the participants here is trying to ask a question.
Yeah, so I was just going to comment about how to use the information in the class. So in the computer class, you could also teach them how to go online to check the weather forecast for the day. And then, I mean, they'll be better prepared for the weather. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, fantastic. That's actually part of one of the assignments I do. They have to go to the website to check what is the weather forecast for today. So yes, exactly. And what else you could do? Well, I used it also for computer classes. I introduced my students to PowerPoint, and the topic was what can I do to help the planet? So we were learning about PowerPoint, but we were using the vocabulary related to natural environment, to the climate changes. And we also learned about the global water cycle. So actually, I have a lady from Somalia who was quite shocked with the whole global water cycle and with the idea that we just have a limited supply of water and we have to be careful how we use it. And the idea that if she closes the tap when she brushes her teeth, could actually save some water that maybe her sister in Somalia could use. It's quite a simplified idea, but they made this connection in the classroom, and I thought it was one of the best lessons we actually had, seeing them realizing what's happening around them in the world. So yes, basically, I would like to encourage you to listen to your students, use their interest, and see what they talk about and how to use it in the classroom. And here on that slide, you can see some of there are three separate slides of three different students' presentations. So very, very basic, but it was their first contact with PowerPoint, and we had lots of fun actually doing it. Huge part of my course is empowering women. It is not my students' everyday experience that they have the same rights in modern Ireland, as every other man. They live in a very, very enclosed environment. Very often they just live really within the boundaries of their family or religious community. And very often they're only allowed to come to our classroom because of social welfare or reasons completely not related to gaining knowledge. And I'm not trying to start a revolution or some social unrest, but I'm trying to make our students realize that they live in modern Irish society, and a woman has a proud role in that society along the man, and that is not as obvious to them. I'm pretty sure you know that it's happening in your classrooms too. So I use any opportunity I can to show the women they are extremely important, and even in the environment that is not women friendly, they can make changes. And I do realize for some of them, while actually talking to my students, I sometimes hear, well, it's too late for me, but it's not too late for my daughter. So we are trying to make changes for their everyday life, but also maybe for the future. You know, for their son to learn with respect for the woman, with the daughter to know that she deserves the respect. So I use every opportunity I can to introduce them to Irish, successful Irish women role models. And for that, I use historical figures like Grace O'Malley or Constant Markievicz. We had 100 years celebrations of Irish independence, so we use that. We were talking about women presidents and more modern, even about the boxing legends, yes, Kelly Harrington and Katie Taylor. But it's crucial also to show them role models in their own countries. Here are some ideas. So we again, you can see module I used it for, and LO I use it. So we read about Rosa Parks, and that's always very heated discussion around that topic. I'm sure you are all familiar with Dr. Hawa Abdi. I had Somalian student that was very excited to read about the woman that is a hero for Somalian women. Unfortunately, Dr. Hawa has passed away, I think, last year. So, but we can always find new role models. There is a new athlete, the 400-meter runner, a lady from born in Dublin, born with Nigerian parents. So we can ask them who are their role models, and we can use the International Women's Day, or we can use any other day to just introduce them to those strong characters. And I think I'm going to run out of time, so I'll skip through a couple of slides. But as part of communications on level 3, because we had only women in a group, we actually read our first book. We used one of those readings that are at the level of our students. We used actually Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility. The students loved it. We read it very slowly through the year, and we also had exercises on a weekly basis. But first of all, I wanted to encourage my ladies to read their first book in their life. And second of all, the topic was interesting. Again, we were talking about the woman in the society, how it was, how it's changing, and even how in the changing environment, every one of us can play a role. In career preparation, we only started career preparation yesterday, but I'm planning to bring in a good few women, Irish and from different origins, working locally, so that can be encouraging part of career preparation module. And the next part I want to talk about is inclusion. We all know inclusion is one of the pillars of further education. And I really try to get my students to fall in love with Ireland. And you can't fall in love in somebody or something if you don't know it. So it's all about being practical, relevant, of their interest, about the women, but also I try to make them understand the world around them, Ireland. So here we have one of the exercises, ESOL level 3. We read about Michael D. Higgins. I took some information from his official website, and I have created this reading. But we also talk about Phoenix Park, and I encourage them to go and see the house of the president. We also, if I can see my students being tired, we listen to Irish music or national anthem. Some of them don't actually know the national anthem of Ireland, being 17 years or 10 years in Ireland, or they might have heard it, but they don't know what it is. or Irish symbols. Sometimes when I can see the lesson was very busy, we just have few minutes break and I ask them to draw a heart or something related to Ireland, and we have 2 minutes chat about that. Also, as part of ESOL, I do have a reading about Ireland just from geographical point of view. So we look at Irish map, we learn about basic geographical and political features. And that's a brilliant opportunity, not only for them to learn about Ireland, but also practice English, practice the language. So we gain lots of vocabulary, like river, mountains, lakes, but we talk about directions, north, south, east, west, something completely new for most of them. And we revise graduation of adjectives, like the longest river, the highest peak. And one of the exercises is just showing slides, photographs from all over Ireland, like we can see on the screen, the cliffs of Moher, and we practice present simple and continuous based on a picture related to Ireland. Again, I'm sure we all do St. Patrick's lesson, but we do it in our classroom with local interest. So we have a legend in Skerries. We claim that St. Patrick came to Ireland through Skerries. Skerries is just a small town neighbor of Balbriggan, and we do have a proof St. Patrick was there. We have a footprint of St. Patrick on our beach. So yes, we learn about Ireland, and I'm sure they have it every year, but this time I asked them to actually go to Skerries. So we actually might try to organize a trip, a field trip, just to actually get them to know not only local history, local legends, but also local places. As part of trying to introduce them to Ireland, in communications module, we have to read 8 different texts. So completely by accident, nearly, I picked an online article about the Great Famine. And I was surprised how it resonated with my students. They were very interested. It was somehow relating to them. And because they were so interested and we learned the language related, as part of career preparation, we're actually going to go to EPIC Museum, the Irish Immigration Museum. Part of communication, again, another text was an article from newspaper. Some of my students want to be care providers. So there was a lovely article about new jobs created in that area. And so we used it as part of communications. And we will use it also as part of career preparation. And when you receive the presentation, take a look at the LOs. They are copied from the module descriptors, and they are just examples how you can use the topic within the module. Part of communications, again, we read a simple graph. So we talk about population, and then we use it as parts of maths at level 3. Where we have to learn reading and creating graphs. But it always relates to the students. So they often complain they cannot get an appointment with the GP. So we look at that, at the graphs and at the statistics, and they can see, well, there is 1 million more people that arrived in Ireland over last 10 years, how many doctors arrived. We have very interesting conversations that actually relate to their everyday life. I think I'm talking too much, but we are nearly finished. I would like to encourage you to be very flexible with your programs. So of course we all have our schemes of work, our plans. If you see your student is comfortable with the language. There is no point to waste the whole lesson. So I always try to move on, because there will be areas where the students will struggle, and I will use that time there. So on the reflection, our program is constantly evolving. And I ask my students on the end of every year about their biggest achievements. And just to name some of them, just to show you how important that program level 2 and 3 is for them. Some of them are just very happy that they are able to send an email or use Office 365, because that's something they will need if they join the workforce. You know the way at level 2 you get an email from a student and the whole email is in the subject, and suddenly they can actually send you a proper email with attachment. They're really proud of it. So they actually named it as their feedback. They were very proud of it. But for some students, the simple things are the most, the things that surprise me. Sometimes they are the biggest achievement. So, for example, during maths, we used rulers, and some of the students did not realize that they have to start measuring from point 0. And one of the students thought this was the best lesson she has learned during our maths. And she said she went home and she basically measured with a borrowed ruler everything she could. For some other student in the same group, actually reading the bank statement, understanding it, was the fantastic goal she achieved. For me, personally, my students reading their very first book was amazing. I could see the excitement, and I have to be honest with you, I don't believe every single one of them read every page or understood every page of that book. But I definitely have 2 to 3 students that will read the next book, especially if I will encourage them this year. And as part of career preparation, we are going to go to the library to make sure they all have their library cards. It was a great joy to see them celebrating reading the first book. And those are just some of the achievements that were part of our program. And just to finish up, at the beginning, I have introduced to you our profile of the students. Here you can see one of the students with me graduating. So out of first 7 original students, 2 of them are already in employment. So they felt comfortable enough to actually leave the course and they have a job. And as far as I know, they're still within the employment. 4 of the students still continue the program with me, which is quite fantastic and actually shows they see the value of the program, because 3 of those 4 students actually have started yesterday the 4th year with me. So they have completed general level 2 and they are going to complete the 3rd year of the employability skills program in May next year with me. So they have committed 4 years for that program, and so they see the value of it. And within those 7 students, we also have one student that actually did not finish level 2 with us. What happens very often is, well, maternity leave. So pregnancy are quite regular within our cohort of students. But she actually came back the following year and she has completed that course with another group of students, and she have received the full award for level 2. She's not with us again now due to another pregnancy, but I'm pretty sure she's going to come back. So I believe the course is very, very successful. You consider the 3 pillars of further education. 2 of our 7 original students already are in employment. 4 are creating, we create the educational paths for them so they can continue studying together qualifications. And it really feels like inclusion is a full success here. We really feel they actually feel they are part of our society. So thank you for listening. I hope you're still all awake and it was practical enough for you. And I'll stop sharing here, and I believe we are open for questions.
Jolanta and Hannah, thanks very much. Jolanta, that was really, really practical with lots of ideas, tips, resources, and suggestions. So I'm sure everybody's got a few ideas that they can use. I even saw someone said they want to use some of the ideas this evening at 6 in their class, so that's great. And if anyone has any questions for Jolanta or Hannah, feel free to unmute and ask, or you can type in a question into the chat box. It's probably faster to unmute and ask anything at all about levels of resources or students.
Hi, Fergus, can I just ask a question there?
Hi, Eileen. Yeah, shoot away.
Yeah, can you hear me? Jolanta, that was fantastic. Some great ideas first and foremost. Thanks a million. I suppose just in terms of the gender in the class, if, I suppose, a different scenario, do you think it would have been more difficult if you had maybe 3 men, 4 women, or did it definitely make it easier?
Yes, well, it's definitely easier to have just women in the classroom. So we would never cut off a man, you know, but we were lucky the way, well, statistically, we have more women coming to our center. So by default, those are usually all women classes. We do have some men joining for ESOL classes, level 3, but it's fantastic to actually be able to focus on the ladies, especially that we sometimes have classes. Our school is part of a program where we have pads and so on in our toilets, and we were able to have actually a lesson that gave them the vocabulary to talk about female-related body parts, how to talk to a doctor, gynecologist, even talk about hygienic products. So we would never be able to do it in the classroom. Well, maybe within Irish students, but our students are not open to talk about those things with men. So it's great benefit to have ladies only in the classroom.
Also, we noticed that when it comes to our literacy classes, men stay as long as they need the practical skills. They would stay in a literacy class and learn to read and write. The moment they have a bit of those skills, they would look for a job. They wouldn't, when they hear that the course is full-time and that the course would take them a year or 2 years, they are not prepared to make that commitment. So like Jolanta was saying, just by default, we end up with groups of women rather than men. Men would take part-time courses, they would take non-accredited courses. They're not as keen on attending every single day.
Thanks.
It's not that they would be not denied if they were. We just don't have that problem at all.
It's working out a lot easier, a lot nicer for you. Yeah.
Somebody here is after asking about resources. So I do not use any books. I might copy some old exercise from a book, but usually I spend my summer holiday or my weekends trying to type it in, to put in the local names, language, and adopt it to my groups of students. But I do use, from English point of view, I love teachthis.com, and I love One Stop English, use them as well. But my favorite at the moment is Twinkle.ie. it's a resource used, it's an online website used in primary and secondary schools. And I love it because I can use whatever topic I need, it's there. Exactly, thank you, Fergus, for typing it in. It doesn't have E on the end of Twinkle.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
For example, when we were talking about the sanitary products or female body parts, that's my website to go to. Now, unfortunately, you have to pay for access, but it's definitely worth it, and they should pay me commission because I talk about them every day, everywhere. But mostly I try to create my own resources using the online resources available. I just try to tailor it. Of course, EduQuote is there. It's a good guidance.
Okay,
Yes.
I see there's a question from Ethna Cody. Ethna, your sound is down. We can't hear you. No. You could type in maybe a question, Ethna. Just while Ethna's typing, has anyone else got a question? There's a question from Linda Coughlin. What's the criteria for joining an ALA course? Linda, could you unmute, please, and just ask me that? I'm unclear what you mean by an ALA course. Do you mean a webinar like this, or do you mean?
No, for can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, for students. I've just got some students that might be interested. Do you have to have a medical cert, or is there what's the criteria they need to get on a course?
Sorry, I don't understand what you mean. So a student to join what kind of an ALA course?
Well, any course. Your level 2, your level 3.
So they're ETB adult literacy courses. They're generally not NALA courses. So the ETBs teach those. Hanna or Jolanta, do you want to answer that?
Yes, when it comes to our courses, these basic courses are free to everyone because they are run from our literacy budgets. They're free to everyone at level 2 and level 3.
Okay, and do you have a start date, an enroll date, or is it throughout the year?
Yeah, our courses start in September and end at the end of May.
Standard times. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we go for the last question. I see Etna has typed in her question. It's, do you think that literacy levels in the learner's native language will determine how they get on with the English learning? Hanna or Jolanta?
Absolutely. Yes, and that's exactly what we were talking about at the very beginning of this webinar when I presented the 4 categories of ESOL literacy learner. Absolutely. First of all, even gaps in education, even if the student is literate but never actually went to school, their ways of learning or their sometimes inability to learn will absolutely determine their progression or the pace of progression. And similarly, if they struggle with literacy in their own language, learning English will be quite a challenge. And this is exactly why we developed this program.
Okay. Hanna, thanks a million. I think we're going to have to leave it there because it's come to 3 o'clock. It just leaves me to say a really big thank you to Jolanta and Hanna for a really comprehensive presentation and webinar with a lot of very practical ideas and resources and suggestions. So thanks very much, and thanks everyone for joining. I've recorded this, and it'll take me probably till next week to get time to edit it and put it up on the NALA YouTube channel. But thanks, Jolanta and Hanna, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.